All right, today we're going to be looking at MAFS 5 MD 2.2, and this specifically talks about making a line plot to display data set of measurements and fractions of a unit, and it either has to be half, quarters, or eighths. And use the operation on fractions for this grade to solve problems involving information represented in line plots. Now, line plots are a way to try to help organize data so you can see it better, and that's what we're going to be using it for. Now, our learning objective is that you will make a line plot display a data set of measurements and fractions of a unit, half, quarters, and eighths to solve addition and subtraction problems using that data. Since the question, first off, what is a line plot and how will it help me or you understand the data? Okay, here we have a problem. And it says a meteorologist set up rain gauges at various locations around the city to record rainfall amounts in the table below. We're talking about this table right here. Use the data to create a line plot using 1/8 inches. So we know we're going to do 1/8 inches. Now I'm looking at all this data and I see one of them here. The largest one was 1 1/4. So that's going to be the end of my line plot. And I know my beginning of my line plot. I don't have to, but I'm going to make this one 0. Now it says in eighths, so I need to get my hole in here. So I'm going to make this one hole right here. And then we know we're going to split up the hole into eighths. So just to measure in half, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now if I number them, I know this is 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and 8/8. Now, I have this gap here. Now, if I were to look at my hole, I can see 4/8. I know that's equivalent to 1/2 because my numerator is half my denominator. Using my spatial sense, I know that a quarter is a half of a half. So I know this is a 1/4. So that means half would actually be 2/4. And then 6/8 would be 3/4. And this one here would be 4/4, which equals one whole again. So looking at this, I know there's an eighth in between one whole and 1/4. So this being 8/8, that means this one here would be 9/8. And our 1 1/4 would be 10/8, which makes sense because it's a fraction greater than 1. All right, so now we have our number line set up. Now we're going to go through and just transfer the data onto the number line. And number 1 location was 1/8. And I'm just going to put an X in that 1/8 location. The number 2 was 3/8. So I want to put an X on the 3/8. Number 3 was 3/4. So I'm coming around looking for about 3/4, and I see that's equal to 6/8. And I got another 3/4. So I'm going to put another X on 3/4. Now I'm coming up with 1/4, so I know that was equal to 2/8. Now I'm coming around to 1 1/4, which is all the way at the end. 1/8, so that's 2 1/8 now. I have a 1/4, so I have 2 1/4. I have a whole, so I'm going to put 1 on the whole. And the last one is a 1/8, so I'm going to put another one on 1/8. Now, as you can see over to the diagram, I got 10 pieces of data. Now I'm going to count my X's to make sure I didn't miss something. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I got 10 pieces of data, so I should be okay. Now that we have it all represented, now we can answer some questions. So let's look at the first one. It says, which location received the most rainfall? Okay. So if I'm looking at this and it says receive the most rainfall, well, I can see over here this 1 1/4. That's a lot of rainfall. But it's asking what location. So I come back over here, locations, and I can see that location 6. And that's coming from our table over here because it wants to know which location. And I can see by looking at my diagram, okay, that the largest amount is right here, 1 1/4. Now, let's go for another question. This one says, which location received the least amount of rainfall? Okay, so we're looking at the lowest amount. And we can see, as far as location goes, there was more than just one location that received the least amount of rainfall. We can see that location 1 received 1/8, and 7 received 1/8, and 10 received 1/8. So there's actually 3 of them that, because it's not asking total, it said the least amount of rainfall. Okay, and it's talking about the individual locations. So we have 3 of them that had 1/8. Now our next question, which rainfall measurement was most frequent? Now this means which one had the same amount of rain the most amount of times. Now looking up here, I can see that my 8th right here had 3 of them. And that is the most frequent. Okay, that's the one that happened most often. So 1/8 answers that question. And our last one was the total rainfall in inches. Oh, here we go. All this adding we have to do. Now, the easiest thing to do here, and I'm going to change color so we can see, is I'm going to take a look at each one of these. And I can see, starting at my 8ths, and I'm going to keep it in 8ths because it's going to be easier for me to add. So I have 3/8 because I got 1, 2, 3 under the 8ths. So that means I got 3/8 for that first location. This next one right here, let me get a highlighter. I can see I have 2 of them. Okay, but those 2 are actually 2/8. So that's 2/8 plus 2/8 would give me 4/8. So this right here is going to equal 4/8 when I add these 2 together. These 3 ended up being 3/8. Now I'm going to go down to the next one. As you can see, the next one is going to be the one all by itself, and it's 3/8. Let me find my pen. Why not have it selected? There we go. I've lost my highlighter. There it is. Okay, so this one here, it only has 1 in there. So we know this is going to be equal to 3/8. So I'm going to come down here and add that 3/8 in. Now I'm going to continue this process. I'm going to my next one. My next one here is these 2. And I can see that this is 6/8 and 6/8, which is going to give me 12/8. And I'm going to keep it in 8ths, like I said, because I want to be able to add this real easy. And we're keeping a common denominator. So now I have 12/8. Now coming back to my highlighter again, we're going to the next set of data. And this one gave us 8/8. It's 1 whole. Now, I don't really need to keep this one in 8ths. Okay? We know this is 1 whole, so I'm going to go ahead and put that as 1 whole. And so this is 1 whole right here. And then our last one being right here, and I've already got it highlighted, so I'm going to circle it. Our last piece of data is right here. And this one equals 1 1/4. But if you notice down here, I also had it as 10/8. And that's going to make it easier for us to add it up. All right. Now all we have to do is add it up. Well, I got my 1 whole. And I can take these 2. That's going to give me 7/8. Plus 3 more is going to give me 10/8. So if I just added these 2 first, let's do it that way. I got 7/8, plus, and I'm going to add these 2 together. 3 and 12 is going to be 15/8 plus 10/8. I don't know why my pen's doing that. Now I can add the next 2. I got 1 plus 7 plus 15 is going to give me 22/8 plus 10/8. My pen is going crazy here. And finally, we're going to end up with 1 whole and 32/8. I'm going to come back up here now. Now we know 1 whole and 32/8 is going to be equal to 20. 1 and 32. So 32 eighths. I know 8 will go into 32 4 times, because 8 times 4 is 32. So in all actuality, we have 1 plus 32 eighths, which was 4, so it equals 5. So the total amount of rainfall was 5. Okay? Now, final thoughts. Line plots are nothing more than a way for you to represent the data so you can see it easier. And it's very important to read the questions being asked. It's very common to make mistakes when it says the most frequent. The most frequent just means the one that had the most amount of X's, okay? When it says the most, let's say which one had the most rainfall, that'd be the largest number. And it really depends on the line plot itself and the questions asked, but you really have to read it very carefully. Okay? Now, I hope you enjoyed this. We're going to be doing an activity when you get in class, so make sure you understand. Okay? All right. See you tomorrow.